Welcome to rSlash Am I the Devil, where OP abandons his sister's placenta. Am I the butthole for throwing out my sister's organ? My sister is always intentionally trying to be the odd one out in the family. Recently, she had her first child, and she decided she wanted to have her placenta taken by some woman and dried and treated so that she could scatter it like ashes or plant it with a tree or whatever. She considers herself very witchy, which causes a lot of friction. The woman was supposed to come pick it up, but then my mom and our auntie surprised my sister with a whole bunch of frozen meals while she's still in the newborn phase. And there wasn't enough room in her deep freezer with all the dishes, plus the giant bag of ice and placenta. So my sister texted the woman and she said it could be dropped off early. My sister essentially volunteered me to drop it off since it's on my way home. I picked up my husband on the way because he had a few drinks after work with friends and was being responsible. When he saw the cooler in the back, he looked in it and was extremely grossed out seeing the frozen placenta. After some discussion, he also made me realize it was really disrespectful to him and I to rope us into this because he has very strong beliefs in God. There was also hygiene and health concerns that my husband brought up. It got to the point where it was either he was going to get out of the car and walk, or the placenta needed to be out of the car. I texted my sister to come pick it up and our mom, but after ages without an answer, we ended up throwing it out. My sister is furious, and she started making it other people's problems. I know it wasn't the nicest, but it also doesn't seem like that big of a deal. I offered to cover the deposit she put down with the woman who was going to process it. And I even got her a gift card to the witch store she likes to get some herbs and stuff to do the ritual she wanted, despite it being against my values. She still claims that even after me apologizing, making amends, and covering her losses, I'm a butthole, and she won't let me come see my niece and refuses to come to or bring my niece to family events that I'm at, which is causing huge problems within the family. She told me to post a situation here, and if it's hormones or sleep deprivation making her overreact, she'll let it go. If I'm in the wrong, I don't know what else I can do that I haven't already to make it up to her. Was this really such a butthole thing, even after the amends? Also, Hopi clarifies that she didn't even throw it away. She just left the placenta in a cooler on the side of the road. So obviously OP is super judgmental, and she went back on her word and she disposed of something that she doesn't have a right to dispose of. Those are all really obvious problems. But the thing I want to point out is, what does any of this have to do with God? I assume that OP is Christian, just the way OP is talking, maybe even Muslim. Who knows? But to my knowledge, I don't know of placenta handling being against any faith as far as I know. So what's the problem with placenta exactly? You can be, grossed out by it. I'm kind of grossed out by it personally. I don't want to drive around with someone else's placenta. But don't blame it on God. God's got nothing to do with this, man. Our next Reddit post comes from r/LegalAdviceUK. In October 2023, my brother stopped communicating with my mom regularly. This was because of a minor misunderstanding where my mom and dad visited the church where him and his fiancée were due to get married in October 2024 without his permission. My mom and dad believed they did have his permission, but there was a bit of a miscommunication. Essentially, my brother capitalized on this misunderstanding in order to bring up a long list of negative childhood experiences that my mom had inflicted on him. My brother essentially has the perception that his mom was abusive, but I can confirm this was not the case. And this is because my brother is blowing several incidents throughout his childhood completely out of proportion because of his warped perception and the toxic influence of his fiancée, which I'll get into later. My mother suffers from several serious physical health conditions that mean she's incapable of working and spends most of her day in the house. Because of this, contact with her children is really important to her. My brother is aware of her health conditions, but throughout our childhood, he never showed any consideration or care for her. It's always me or my father who cared for her, and my brother simply stormed off to his room or got annoyed when my mother required assistance. Because of this, my mother's mental health began rapidly deteriorating when my brother cut off regular communication in October 2023. There were a couple of sessions with a mediator between my mother, father, brother, and his fiancée, but to no avail. My brother then met up with my mom several times face to face. However, the first time, he started shouting at her in a public location, and he refused to back down on anything. Without going into explicit detail, he repeatedly brought up examples of my mom's abusive behavior throughout his childhood, even though we're talking about a handful of examples over a period of 18 years, and it was always kept verbal, never physical. I can confirm that 99% of the time, our mother was loving and caring and made it her mission 24/7 to raise us and provide us with everything we wanted and needed. At the same time, my brother and his fiancée have been planning their wedding and purposefully excluding my parents from the process. Additionally, my parents have not received invitations to the wedding, and this has really upset my mom to the point where she's feeling depressed and suicidal every day. My brother is aware of the impact that this is having on my mom's physical and mental health, and he either doesn't care or extracts a sadistic pleasure from it. My brother's fiancé is also incredibly toxic. He's at her beck and call at all times of the day. She dictates to him when to call her and when he has to see her. For example, when my brother was studying at university, she would come to his flat 3 nights a week and force him to sleep on the sofa while she slept in his bed. Yeah, right. When my brother was talking to my mom on one occasion, she came into the room, sat on his lap, tilted his head towards her, and made him look at her. It's quite strange behavior. In conjunction with this, we believe that my brother's fiancé intends to split him off from his family in order to have a monopoly on his attention, and that she's essentially weaponized my brother's pre-existing warped perception of his own childhood for her own ulterior motive. When I confronted my brother about the possibility of my mom's suicide and said, "What if she kills herself because of this?" he simply replied, "That's her problem." When my father told him, "This could kill her," my brother simply replied, "I wonder how she'll do it." Essentially, my brother is trying his hardest to push my mom to suicide and doesn't care about her physical and mental health. This has been continuing and getting progressively worse since October last year. This week, however, as the wedding is within 2 months, I became seriously worried about my mom and that she was going to act on it. And that's why I'm just asking if there's anything I can do legally to force my brother to cooperate, or at least maintain some level of contact with his mother in the future. I know this is a long shot, and if there aren't any legal mechanisms that can assist me here, thank you for your time anyways. Please understand my desperation and that I don't want to lose my mother, who's loving and kind, unlike my brother's perception. Sorry if I've worded this poorly. It's been difficult to think straight because of this. Okay. This is what you call an unreliable narrator. Somehow, despite the fact that this guy he said like 20 times that his mom is very loving and caring and not at all abusive, I don't believe him. I think she was actually abusive. Because OP is completely clueless. "Oh, yeah, my girlfriend, she does visit 3 times a week, but I sleep on the sofa and she sleeps on the bed." Yeah, totally. Come on, who's gonna buy that? That's such an obvious lie to cover the fact that they're bumping uglies, and OP actually believes it and put it in a post? Is OP really this stupid? There's so many obvious tells too. Why was the mother banned from visiting the church in the first place? Why would there be a misunderstanding about whether or not mom is allowed at the church? Why does she even need to visit the church at all? Well, clearly she got banned because she's abusive. Clearly she ignored the ban, and clearly she went there just to meddle. So I don't know what the real story is here, but we're definitely not going to get it out of OP because OP is deluded. Am I the butthole for parting with my friend midway through a Grand Canyon hike? My friend Crystal and I spent 6 months planning and training for a very intense all-day hike of the Grand Canyon. We would go down South Kaibab and up Bright Angel on Crystal's birthday in June, which would be over 100 degrees. 2 weeks before the hike, our friend Valerie said she wanted to join us. Valerie looks way fitter than us. She does CrossFit and has a six-pack, and we assumed she'd be fine. On the trip leading up to the hike, Valerie was eating salad while Crystal and I were carb loading with pasta and pizza. Crystal and I each bought 4 liters of water, trail mix, and granola bars, and believed Valerie had packed her bag with the same, as it was all in the hotel room for all of us to share when we packed up the night before. About half of the way down, Crystal and I realized that at the pace Valerie was going, and thus the rest of us, we would not finish the hike before sundown. We told Valerie about our concerns, and she said that we should just hike ahead without her, and that she would either catch up, or if it was too much, turn back. We asked if she was really sure about it, and she said she was, so off we went. When we got to the bottom of the canyon, we waited for about an hour at the Colorado River, but didn't see her. At this point, we really had to get going so we could finish the trail before nightfall. We tried to call her from a payphone, but got her voicemail. None of us had reception. We explained the situation to a ranger, and they said that they would look out for her. When we were close to the bottom and it was actually already dark, we got reception and got messages from her that she had collapsed, and she had to stay at the lodge at the bottom of the canyon. The lodge is booked months out, but I guess they hold some emergency bids. She would hike out the next day with another group and said not to worry about her. Both Crystal and I were totally destroyed physically, but we got in the car, went, and demolished a pizza, then went to sleep at the hotel. Oddly, we found half of Valerie's water and all of Valerie's food at the hotel. I don't want to make too many assumptions about her, but I think it's clear enough to say that it seemed clear she didn't know how to eat during or before a hike, despite our guidance. The next day, Valerie said that she would be up by 3 p.m. I was planning to pick her up. However, the one update we got from her was that she would be hours late. 6 p.m. rolled around and she still wasn't up. I left her a voicemail letting her know we needed to continue on to our next hotel 1 hour away. We were both feeling really beat up, and I didn't think I would have the energy to do the drive much later. I told her in the voicemail that I'd pay for her to Uber to the hotel, just tell me how much it was. At around 10 p.m., Valerie called me furious. It took her over 13 hours to hike up, and she almost didn't make it. She was suffering from sunstroke. She said she could have died because we abandoned her, and we were really selfish not to stay with her. Am I the butthole? Yeah, I'd say so. You shouldn't have even let her come in the first place. It sounds like OP and her friend are really experienced hikers, and they kind of just assumed that Valerie was also a good hiker, but didn't talk to her or warn her or help her plan or really help her at all. They kind of just left her to potentially die. Sure, Valerie also has some responsibility to be an adult and actually do research, but I think everyone here acted pretty stupidly, to be honest. Am I the butthole for requesting my professor to assign me a new group project partner? I started university, and I'm an international student studying electrical engineering at a very prestigious university. For one of my classes in computer programming, we have to do a group project with one other person in the class. As I didn't know anyone in the class, I got a randomly assigned person. In my culture, we're not allowed to interact with women and girls unless they're family to avoid potential conflicts. And if we have to, they should behave and dress modestly. There are hardly any girls in the class, but I was assigned to work with one. I didn't know until we met, as her name was not unisex. When I met her, I realized she was the one girl in the class who dresses immodestly. She wears short skirts and tops that expose her shoulders and belly. Of course, since it's not my country, I cannot ask her to change, but I was uncomfortable due to my cultural and religious beliefs, and I felt that my parents would not approve. So I spoke to the professor, but he said that it was too late to change partners unless there's an issue with someone not contributing. So far, this hasn't been an issue, and she's actually a lot smarter than I expected, and already has experience programming. I decided to speak to the faculty to give it another try, as I felt that it was worth a shot. As an international student, I pay a lot more than the others, and in addition to that, my father has given the university generous donations even before I applied. They also denied it, however. I then spoke to my dad, and he said since it's not really an issue, and to not think more about it, and because I tried everything, this makes it a situation arising out of necessity. So it won't be a problem, and I can behave differently abroad if I want to. My dad is a little less educated on cultural issues than I am, however, but he's right that if I tried everything, it can be seen as okay. I continued working with the girl, and it went okay. However, now she's somehow heard about me trying to switch, and how I told both the professor and faculty, and she got upset with me about it. At this point, I don't want to switch anymore, as the project is going very well. However, it's not as engaging and fun as her tone with me has changed, and she only gives short answers without discussing things freely. It's kind of ironic that OP's dad, who's from an older generation and theoretically living in the more conservative culture that OP comes from, is still like, hey man, It's not a big deal. Really, it's okay to work with a woman. Women can be smart. Women can go to school. It's totally fine. But OP's like, I don't know, man. She's got cleavage, and that means she's probably dumb. That was rSlash Am I the Devil. And if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.